Today, and with the first pick, we're rolling out our pre-draft running back rankings and what is another deep position in this draft class. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Emory Hunt. This is episode 232. And Emory, smart guy, how many days until the 2025 NFL draft?
40-something days, Ryan.
It feels like it. You got 36.
Close enough.
You got some work to do, man, because I know you got to get your draft guide all sorted. So maybe you went downstairs at 42. It's 36 now when you came back up for air to do this podcast here. By the way, let me ask you another pop quiz here. Former running back out of Louisiana. You can see his jersey back there, number 26, the OG Le'Veon Bell. How many running backs went in the first round a year ago, Emory?
In the first round a year ago, 2024, I would say 0.
0. Year before that, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs went in the first round, and it seems to alternate from one year to the next whether we have a running back in the first round. There's going to be a running back going in the first round this year. The question is how many? I'll set the over at 1.5. What are you going to take?
I would say 1.5. I would say over. I'd say over because we got a chance. Because there's two that we're going to talk about right away that are pretty doggone good.
Yeah, you're right about that. All right, producer Striker's with us too. Emory's telling us we got a chance. Striker. By the way, before we get to our aggregate with first pick rankings, I'm going to, by way of producer Striker, we're going to show a graphic of Emory and I's individual top 10s. And I'll be honest, and Emory knows this because I love him. He says some wild stuff sometimes. I was either pleasantly surprised or very concerned to see that many of our guys at the top were the same. There's no Crazy Town USA on either of our lists here. And I was sort of shocked, Emory. I was looking at our individual list here. If you're listening, I'll read through some of them. That you had Ashton Jeanty number 1, not because he's not the best quarterback, but we talked in the fall, and you didn't love him nearly as much as I did. Did you come around on him, or is it just a function he's the best running back in this class?
No, it's actually a little bit of both. When I graded him, I still had an appreciation for what he was doing, but there's not that big of a gap, in my opinion, between him and Hampton. And actually, I have the same grade for him and Hampton, numerical grade. And that's the reason why I kept bringing up, even back in the fall, Emmitt Smith. The comparison is because, think about it, Ryan. We grew up and we're watching Barry Sanders and Emmitt. That was a big debate. Who's better, right? And you saw what made Barry better, right? It just was visually appealing to the eye. But for Emmitt Smith, you just couldn't understand, like, how is he gaining all these yards? How is he this good? Nothing about him stands out, right? And so when you compare that to Jeanty, you're thinking, like, man, he's just breaking tackles, like just running through dudes. Like, it's not like he has agility, like the make you miss type of elusiveness or whatnot.
He does, though. He does now, Emory.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't really make you miss, but at the end of the day, he gets it done, and you have to give him credit for that, because that in and of itself is a skill, and he is legitimately strong. So, and to your point about the rankings this year, to be honest, a part of the reason why, Ryan, is that we're seeing guys now play a little bit longer, and a lot of the small school guys that probably would have been in my list are transferring to G5 programs or P4 programs. So you're seeing a really good, it's like it's filtering up to the top, college football is, and that's why this year's rankings look like how they look for me.
Yeah, I think Ashton Jeanty's got a little more juice than you think he does, and that's fine. I put him in the same category as Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. I've been saying that. That's too rich for you?
That's a little bit too rich for me. I still have an 80.5 grade on him, so that's a first round grade in my opinion. So I put him in that same category grade wise with the Breece Halls and those guys that I had with that same grade.
I'm gonna tell you, like Breece Hall told me. I told you the story where the combine your Breece
I was
Hall
there.
Did I tell you that?
When he looked, he's like, he was upset when you had him ranked.
Yeah, because stupid Jamie Eisenberg, who we work with, was sitting on set with me and pointed to me and said, "Hey, Breece, this guy says you're number 2 in the draft class behind Ken Walker," and he was not happy when he looked at me. And I appreciate his seriousness and believing in his abilities. And Breece is a good player, but he says I'm top 2 and I'm not 2.
Ooh, I love it. I love the confidence, man.
And as an old man, what are you going to say to a 22-year-old that can whip you on stage in front of everybody and Jesus? So I just said, all right.
And the thing is, he was like, for those that are listening, man, you got to cut Ryan some slack, cut guys, slack, because it's not like when you grade guys, you're saying this guy can't do this. It's levels to this, and this is just a ranking, and it's not saying he's not going to go off and be a Pro Bowl player. I think that's where fans and some players take everything as a slight, and is not a slight. It's just a report. Like, we get this all the time. Strengths and areas of improvements.
Yeah, and it's funny because when we have these players on and we do the social media stuff with them, because that's what, if we're being honest, a little peek behind the curtain that helps pay the bills, even at the big corporations. You ask them to rank guys, and they're ranking guys. You don't see Dan Marino coming out from behind the curtain saying, "Yo, man, why do you have me number 2 behind Joe Namath?" But yeah, take your point. That's why we got you on here so we can talk about these guys. We both have Ashton Jeanty number 1. It's funny. I asked him at the combine, has anyone said anything to you about being 5'8" or sub 5'8", whatever you end up being? He said, "You know what? No team has asked me about that. You're the only one." So he feels about me like Brees Hall feels about me, probably. He was a good kid. He's a military background. His dad's a military guy, and he's all business. He stayed at Boise State. Obviously, he could have left. I think he's a little more juiced up than Emory does. But to Emory's point, you are not tackling this young man in space. That's a wrap. I don't care if you weigh 320, 220, or 155. He's going to run through you. And the other thing, and we've talked about this to death, wasn't used a lot in the pass game this year, Emory, but 2023, that dude can ball. You can use him like you used Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson in the pass game if you want to exploit that part of his abilities. And just, I don't know if he will run. Boise State's pro day is March 26th. That's a week from now as we record this. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it matters. One last thing before we take one more quick look at our top 10 individual list here. Is he a top 15 pick?
I don't think he's a top 15 pick. For me, when you talk about top 15 pick in terms of this position, you're talking about someone that has that take it to the house speed. You're talking about a Jahmyr Gibbs. You're talking about a Bijan Robinson. You're talking about those
dudes weren't catching him though, Emory.
I mean, but he does have. I think he tops out about 4.55.
You think so? All right.
I think so. I think what helps him, and the reason why dudes don't catch him, his start is crazy, which you can see in his calves, and you can see in his lower body. His explosiveness is right off the gate. I don't think he's faster than Maurice Jones-Drew, who ran 4.3. I think he's about 4.5. I say tops out at 4.55, but so he could probably run between 4.5 flat and 4.53. I don't think he's slow, but when we're talking about guys that got legit, sit on the edge of your seat type speed, he doesn't have that, but he has, the balance, the contact through, the power through contact. And I will say this, I'm glad nobody asked him about the shortness, because at the end of the day, man, when you can't hit what you can't catch, you can't hurt what you can't touch. And by the time these linebackers at the second level see you, it's too late. So it is to your advantage to be a shorter tailback, because you're not taking the direct shots. You are able to, coil your body up, and now you're getting bumped to the side or knocked over to the side. You're not getting knocked back or getting knocked off balance like a taller back would. So it works to his advantage. He just has to be a little bit more judicious on when and where he's going to deliver the contact or take on contact.
Hey, Striker, let's take another quick look at our individual top 10s, and then we'll get into our number 2 guy. Jeanty's our number 1, as I mentioned. And you talk about tall guys, and we'll talk about this young man a little later in the show, Emory. Kaleb Johnson out of Iowa. He runs high, and that's just the reality of it. And you didn't love him. He's not in your top 10. I liked him a little bit, but I part of me, and I'll be honest with you, I feel like I've sort of convinced myself that he's maybe a better player than I saw on tape, because I know other teams like him, and that's on me. We'll see. And I just think there's some things. He's not explosive. And I just mentioned that to get to your point about these taller, more upright backs. Quickly, I'll hit some highlights here for guys who are listening, guys and gals who are listening. Jeanty's number 1 for both of us, who have Omarion Hampton number 2 out of UNC. That I love that guy on every single facet of his game. Trey Henderson, Richmond's very own, out of Ohio State, number 3. A couple guys that we both have. We have R.J. Harvey out of UCF on our list. Quinshon Judkins is on our list. Emory does have Cam Scatterbo near the bottom of his list. If we're being honest, he's a top 2 player. I just wonder about the longevity, because good luck finding someone that will consistently run through a wall and then take on a couple elephants at the circus before he makes his way to the end zone, man. And he does it 15, 20, 25 times a game. Emory has Devin Neal. I love Devin Neal. I didn't have him in my top 10. He ran a 4.55, maybe. I'll double check. It doesn't matter. To Emory's point, if Jeanty's a 4.5 plus guy, Devin Neal is a guy who's probably going to get drafted higher than we've talked about out of Kansas. All right. That's it for individual list.
I got to push back a little bit. How you going to say all that about Johnson, and he's sitting right there at your 4th spot?
I know. I tried to. I was explaining. I talked myself into it. Sometimes you do that, and historically, it's blown up in my face. I'm being honest. Like, I saw some first round buzz in the fall. I said, man, is that the same Kaleb Johnson? So I went back and watched him. And again, I'm not trying to crush the kid. I'm just compared to the other
Right.
guys we have on this list. And I said, man, he runs upright. And we'll talk about
We'll dive into it, yeah, because I got a good comparison for him too.
Yeah, and that was another tough thing. You don't see before we get to Omarion Hampton. I keep saying this, and it feels like it's coming true, but it feels like the running back position. These guys are all morphing into my guy Jaylen Warren. Like they're all getting a little 5'10", 5'9" to 5'10 and a half, 210 to 220. They run 4.5. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. They'll run between the tackles, but they have the juice to bounce it. There's not a lot of Le'Veon Bells or Kaleb Johnson type body types coming out anymore. Derrick Henry is the exception, but he was drafted however many years ago as a second-round pick. Who else is a tall running back that plays like that?
That play, I mean, if you think about it, if we go back a little bit, Deuce McAllister ran a little bit tall, but Deuce had that explosive 4.3 speed. Adrian Peterson ran tall, but we know he had the explosive, game breaking speed. And that's the thing. When you talk about Joe Mixon runs a little bit tall.
That's a good example. Yeah.
But he has the springiness to get the lateral agility like a Le'Veon Bell, not overly patient like Bell, but has that same springiness. And when you think about those taller backs, if you're 6'1" and you could run like you're 6 feet or 5'11", that's a good pad level that you kind of want.
Yeah, but it's hard to find. To your point, I think we're Derrick Henry, we're Joe Mixon. I don't know if there are a lot of other guys that are big, tall guys that are just running upright through the holes all day. Joe Mixon runs pretty low. I think Derrick Henry runs upright, but his knees get up to his chin, so people's not trying to tackle any of that stuff. All right, let's talk about Omarion Hampton here. When we look at our aggregate rankings, he is number 2 on our list after Ashton, Jeanty, and I'll give you the floor. 5'11", almost 6 feet, 221. And my man ran a 4.46. Again, if he ran a 4.55, I'd feel the same about him. He can catch coming out of the backfield. Needs to get a little bit better as a blocker, but you're not drafting this guy in the first or second round to be out there pass protecting. You're drafting out there to drag guys up and down the field. What do you think about Omarion?
I mean, he got good all around game, man. Yep. I just love his game. Like, and on both ends of offense, as a runner and also as a pass catcher. And I love the balance he runs through. It's almost like he gets faster as he gets contacted. And, he popped on the scene when we were watching last year, you're grading Drake May, but you're constantly watching the running back do his thing. It's like, wow, this dude is, he has good vision, good balance, good burst. And he's the one that when he attacks a lane, you're talking about an easy 30 to 40-yard jaunt. I heard this comparison to how his run style is, and it makes a lot of sense when you watch how he runs and how his feet hit the ground. You're talking about someone like DeMarco Murray. I think that's a good way of visualizing how someone like Murray just ran. He's faster than Murray, more explosive. But someone, to me, foundational back, I use that term a lot, and that's to me someone that can start the game, finish the game, doesn't need volume. You kind of want him out there because the more you give him the ball, the better he is, and he has more likeliness to break the long run. So I'm a big fan of Hampton. I thought he was one of the more impressive running backs. If he was in last year's class, he would have went in the first round. Yep. And that's why I say you said the over and the 1.5. I can see him getting in that first round conversation too.
Yeah, and he feels like that guy that could come into the back of the first round. I think this may be unfair because of the hindsight of the last few years, and this guy worked incredibly hard and under some tough circumstances. I think he's better than Najee Harris. I'm just thinking about the Steelers perhaps drafting someone at the back of the first round. If they happen to take a running back, I don't think they will, but I like him a little bit better than Najee. Although Najee was a different dude coming out. He sort of had that Mac Jones effect when he got to the NFL. You forgot how good he was at Alabama.
Right. You know what it is about Najee that lets you believe that Hampton is more fluid. Najee seems like he's running against the wind. In terms of
and he actually runs a little upright at times too.
That's another one. And he was 6'1" when he came out, right?
Yeah.
So he took on a lot of contact, and that wears on you, man, because you're getting, as a shorter back, you're getting hit in the shoulder. But as a taller back, you're getting hit in the ribs, get hit in the hips, and that stuff like that kind of wears on you, man.
It adds up. Yeah, I wrote down for Omarion, a workhorse back who hits a lot of doubles, to your point. So he's going to rip off 15, 20 yarders like it's nothing. He can run between the tackles, and a lot of times with these young players, they like to bounce it because they're faster than everyone else at the college level, and that's not going to work in the NFL. That's not an issue for him. And he had 39 catches last year. He's an absolute asset as a pass receiver, and 10 games of more than 100 rushing yards. 3 times he ran for 190, NC Central, Wake Forest, and North Carolina State. So I don't know if there are any holes in this game outside of perhaps pass protection. And again, you're not drafting him in the first round to be run blocking and pass blocking, at least early on.
Well,
all right, those are – oh, go ahead. What you got?
Well, here's what folks need to understand about pass pro. And no back likes pass pro. And it's not because they're afraid of getting hit. It's they don't want to get run over. They don't want to look like a fool on film and everybody's watching and making fun of you, right? But the most important part about pass pro is knowing who to block. And as long as you know who to go get,
yeah,
I'm fine with you. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, you can get in the way for 2 seconds. And if you know who to get, the confidence is going to be there for you to pick up the blitz or pick up whoever. It's not about we could work on technique. We can get your feet right. We can get your hands in the right place. But if you don't know who to get, you're a liability out there. So as long as he knows who to get, you're fine.
Yeah, that's an important point because a lot of times when you watch these college running backs pass block, they are getting away guys. But if you're out there on your head on a swivel and you miss the safety blitz and the quarterback gets blown up, you're going to be standing on the sidelines with you and me over there next to the water jug because you're going to get someone killed out there playing that way. All right, that's a good point, Emory. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at the next 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the With the First Pick aggregated first rankings for running backs right after this.
Guys, can you feel it? Legends were born here. History was made here. These are hallowed grounds.
Hallowed grounds?
The NCIS squad room?
Well, I wasn't talking about that, but I was talking about Augusta National.
All right. It's finally time for the Masters.
I hear it's a tradition unlike any other.
All right, producer Striker. Next up, number 3 on our list, TreVeyon Henderson. Goes by Trey out of Ohio State. Our buddy Rick Spielman did him dirty by telling him to come back to school and then bringing Quinshon Judkins over there. Turns out to be a blessing because less wear and tear on Trey and Quinshon's body. And we'll talk about Quinshon in a little bit. The team won the national title. Actually asked Trey about it at the combine, how that was. And he said, at first, you got to do some mental gymnastics to make sure you're okay with it. And by the time the rubber met the road here, we were all exactly where we needed to be. And I give Trey a lot of credit. He's got some juice. I mean, he can bounce it, and he's going to outrun everybody down the field. Like, he has legit track speed. Ran in the 4.4s. In high school, he ran the 100 and 10.9. And he will also block, and he will block his ass off. And there are clips. And Emory, you may have been talking about the clip where he was lead blocking for Will Howard on occasion, and he relishes that. And again, it's not the most important part of his game, but the fact that he'll do it, that when the chips are down, he ain't going to stick his head in the sand. He's going to be out there trying to make plays for you, whether if you're asking him to block or get 5 or 6 yards on 3rd and 3. So I love Trey Henderson. I like him better than Quinshon Judkins, although Quinshon had a great year as well for Ohio State.
Yeah, same for me. That's why he's my RB3. And I thought this year he put it all together because last year I felt like he was a little bit too hesitant in terms of bouncing outside. He was too much married to the play call. Sometimes you got to abandon that play call, man, and just get out of Dodge. And this year, he was able to work front side to back side completely because you see the footwork, you see the agility, he has it in his bag, and he wasn't using it last year. But this year, he tied it all together. And I said this before, I tweeted this out. Watching him is like listen to smooth jazz with a glass of Cabernet, Ryan, because he is just so smooth and how he sees it and ties it up perfectly. And he could make you miss in the phone booth. It's like the agility to make somebody miss or get to different gaps, but the elusiveness is what the word I'm looking for, is to make somebody miss. And he has the speed to hit the home run. Also, you talk about the pass pro, and this is the other nuance of pass pro. It wasn't to where he was just jumping in front of a moving bus and taking one for the team. He'd go step into the line of scrimmage, meet you at the inflection point, and stonewall you. So now you have extra time back there in the pocket, as opposed to I got to sidestep, step up, and then get rid of the football because the back waited too late or gave up too much ground in pass pro. So he did a good job of just, okay, I know who to get. I'm going to go meet him at the line of scrimmage, stonewall him at the point of attack. My quarterback has ample time. And so all of those things, the running, the vision, the footwork, to me, if we're talking about over under 1.5 backs going to round 1, I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps in that round too because of the pass pro combined with the explosiveness and all the things that he brings to the table.
Oh, round 2, is that what you said?
Round 1.
Oh, yeah. That's a little rich for me, but you know what he reminds me of? Let me make sure I get all these guys right. Back in 2020, God, I can't believe it was that long ago. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire went in round 1, and that was sort of a surprise to the Chiefs. But then they had those run-on guys, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, A.J. Dillon, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, that went pretty much all close together in round 2. I feel like we can see a cluster of guys this year if they don't make their way into round 1. And if Omarion, Hampton, and Trey Henderson slip into round 2, they're going to be a run on these dudes because this group feels maybe better than that group now. We'll see how it works out. Cam Akers had the injury. DeAndre Swift has been okay. Jonathan Taylor's been really good, of course. J.K. Dobbins had the injury history, but when he's on, he's on. All right. That's our consensus number 3. We both, our top 3 are in lockstep here. Tied for 4th. Let's bring it back to my guy, Kaleb Johnson, and then we'll talk about your guy, Trevor Etienne, Travis's brother, plays at Georgia by way of Florida. But we'll start with Kaleb. And again, so he was 6'1", 224, ran a 4.57. And to me, that's how he plays. And you look at my notes here, he's not a jump cut runner. He likes to round off his runs. He does run through arm tackles. I mean, this photograph here captures it perfectly from striker. He's as upright as a flagpole on a windy day. I mean, I get that he's down the field and he's running past the defensive back, but that's what he looks like running through the hole at times. And let me ask you this, Emory, as a former running back, can you coach? I mean, you were never 6'1".
No.
Not even in your dreams, but can you coach a tall running back to run lower? Because it's like telling the defensive tackle, man, get your pads low because you're getting run into the secondary. How do you make a guy do that?
That's a great question because it's a tricky dance, man, because you don't want to lose his natural ability, right? It's almost like trying to teach Phillip Rivers to throw overhand as opposed to, sidearm. That's just how he throws. That's when he first picked up football, that's how he threw. And that just kind of became comfortable for him. So with Johnson, it's like, this is how you run. Maybe we can teach you to sink your hips a little bit better when you're making a cut. So you don't sacrifice lateral agility for how you naturally run. So it's hard to say, hey, run lower, because then he's going to overcompensate.
Yeah.
Even slower to the hole and through the hole. So you just kind of want to, okay, what can we teach him? We can get his footwork together so he can see it faster and be able to react faster. Or we could teach him how to lower his shoulder in a certain way to take on contact to where he's not running tall and everybody's hitting him, from the midsection on up. I will say this about Johnson that we got to appreciate, or that I appreciate about this game or any running back's game, is that you can't go broke taking a profit. Like, he's going to gain positive yards. So at the end of the day, if we're thinking about this from a 10,000 foot level, we got 4 chances to get 10 yards. If he's going to get me 3.5, then we can really just get the first down on 3rd down by him just running how he runs. But at the end of the day, the flip side is that he's a primarily front side runner. So if you beat him to the spot, he's not going to cut it back, and you sacrifice that run, you're dead in the water. And so he's going to have to really work on, hey, if you see it, because sometimes we see it and we know our own ability, or at least I did. If I saw it, like, yeah, ain't no way I'm getting backside. So you know what I'm saying? So for him, it's like, I see it, but I don't trust that I can get there. But at the end of the day, you got to be an athlete and do it. But, he's a build-up speed type of a guy, so he's not explosive. If you give him some time, he's going to get revved up. But I just like the fact that he's going to find positive yards. He's always going to fall forward. The big game for me that really kind of, because I was like you, I just kept hearing all the first round buzz about Johnson. And then I had a game that Saturday, and it was one of those rare 9 p.m. Eastern time kickoffs when they played UCLA. And maybe that was the worst game I could have watched of him, because UCLA linebackers are flying around the football and
they got some dudes there too.
Dudes knocking everybody out. And he didn't have a great game. They stonewalled him and stopped him at or behind the line of scrimmage a lot. I was like, I just don't see the explosiveness or the ability to create. And I think when you look at a guy like a Brian Robinson,
another upright runner, there we go.
Yep. That to me is a fair comparison to Kaleb Johnson.
And Brian Robinson, I thought, was drafted in the 3rd round. That felt a little high for me. Turns out they got it right. He's been pretty good. And by the way, to follow up on what you're saying, my other notes for Kaleb were consistently decisive behind the line of scrimmage. He doesn't loiter and wait around, because sometimes when guys stop their feet, it's hard to get them restarted. Let's see. he's more slasher than bulldozer. I think he's actually pretty good in his own scheme, just to see the
Yes.
crease and hit it. And maybe getting backside is something he needs to work on. But if it's front side, he sees the crease, he's going to hit it, and then he's going to run through arm tackles, high knee Derrick Henry style. So there are reasons to like his game, and I think Brian Robinson actually is a pretty good comp, because Le'Veon Bell that size, but Le'Veon Bell, there was nobody more patient, and Caleb's pretty good at being decisive back there. And by the way, he can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. And to your other point, extremely productive. 9 games with more than 100-plus yards at 187 versus Iowa State, 206 versus Minnesota. 5 games with 164 or more rushing yards. So it's just what flavor of ice cream you're looking for, and that flavor is pretty rare in today's NFL when you're talking about size for these running backs. A guy who fits the description perfectly for a 2024, 2025 running back is your guy, Trevor Etienne, Travis's brother. Not nearly as explosive as Travis, different body type, but he's a good football player. And actually, he ran pretty well. He might have run sub 4.5. I'll double check, but I think he ran better than I thought he might. And he's just, in my mind, a solid player, but clearly you like him a little more than I do, because you got him. He's tied for 4th in the aggregate rankings. And quickly here, he was 5'8.5", 198, 4.42. So then my man was moving.
And for him, I'll say this, and I value vision more so than anything for the running back position. So I thought he had the best vision in the class.
Okay.
In terms of, like, when we draw it up on the whiteboard, like, oh, this guy's going to hook this guy. He's going to fan block here. He's going to, climb up to this guy, and you're going to weave back. He hits it like you drew it up. And it never works like that. And it's just like, when we talk about vision, we're talking about how we're, let's say, sitting in the stands and we're watching it play out. They're like, oh, there's a hole over there. And he actually hits that hole over there. Because people love to say, well, why didn't he cut it back? Or why didn't he hit this hole? Well, your field level, and you're seeing it this way. But for a guy that has that, bird's eye view vision like Etienne does, he's able to really hit it as it's developing. So he's weaving through the line of scrimmage, kind of like an Aaron Jones does with his vision, in combination of just doing it as it's opening, and just flows really well. So we call that running back fluidity. I feel like Etienne has that. You just have to stay healthy. And that's going to be the biggest thing. And because I feel like teams get a little bit too biased in size. So I would start him, because, if you're good enough, you're big enough. But he's probably going to have to be part of a tandem, but he's going to be a really good guy to have in your backfield.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes here. Runs with good vision, both at the line of scrimmage and beyond. So when he gets to the second level, he's setting up defensive backs with angles. Use jump cut to get to the hole. Like, and sometimes you see guys like, that's not Kaleb Johnson's games, for example. You're not going to jump cut a gap and a half to get backside. That's something Trevor can do. And I did question his ability to turn the corner, even though he ran in the 4.42 range. That doesn't always translate. Like, I remember Elijah Mitchell at ECU. He was getting every corner.
Yeah.
And he was not running between the tackles because he ran a 4.2, whatever he ran. I want to see Trevor do that more. But look, man, you don't have to be Bijan Robinson in every running back. You can get guys to do certain things well. And I had a early day 3 grade on Trevor. You think he goes round 2, round 3, or how rich are you willing to go on Trevor?
Well, to your point, it depends on, like, when the run starts, right? So if Jeanty goes 6, right, to the Raiders, or 10 to the Bears, and Hampton messes around and goes 15 to 20, we may see that third running back creep in the first round. And then, to your point, the top of the second, we may see a run. So
that's true.
You know what I'm saying? I think day 2 is probably where he's going to go, unless, people are, they're going to check the health and the background. So that could always push guys down, unbeknownst to us in the media. I could see round 3 being where he goes. I could see that happening.
By the way, I'm checking quickly. I have 9 guys with day 1, day 2 grades at the running back position.
This class, it reminds me so much of 2017. Is that the Fournette McCaffrey class?
Let me double check my notes here. That sounds right.
That group had, like, McCaffrey, Fournette, Aaron Jones, Mixon, Perine, Tariq Cohen,
Dalvin
Cook, Kareem Hunt. That was a deep class, man.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm laughing because I'm looking. I did a sort on Pro Football Reference to get all the running backs, the first and second round picks going back to 2015. I said, why is Adam Shaheen's name on here? He was a fullback coming out of Ashland. That's why they put him on that list.
Shout out to Ashland.
Shout out to Ashland. What state is that in? Is that Virginia?
That's Ohio.
Wasn't even close. All right, let's talk about number 6 on our list because Kaleb Johnson, Trevor Etienne tied for 4th on the aggregate with the first pick running back rankings. Number 6 on our list, we had this man on both our individual lists, and shout out to our guy Lijay Doosbull who played at UCF, RJ Harvey, and Lijay was happy to see he made the list here. Another guy. Here's the thing, man. When we talk about 400 guys, some guys can get overlooked. We haven't heard a lot of folks talking about RJ Harvey. He fits perfectly my Jaylen Warren size comp. 5'8", 205, ran a 4.4. And I love everything about the way this young man plays. I have him as a late day 2 guy. He probably ends up going on day 3 just because there's so many other needs that could be filled and a ton of running backs maybe go in a different direction. I said he's patient behind the line of scrimmage. He lets blocks develop, and then he has twitchy lateral movement to hit the gap or crease, and then he just steps on the gas. Sayonara, see you later. And again, a little Jaylen Warren type to his game. What do you like about RJ?
All of what you said, number one, that's great because all that's in my notes too, and also great receiving skills. He's comfortable in catching the ball away from his body. That's the other part too. We when we grade backs and we talk about the receiving skills, I separate them in 2 separate categories. You have the meet expectations backs. That's your swing, screens, flares, and flats. Bro, you're supposed to catch those. Like that's part of the job, right? But with Harvey, he's a downfield threat in the passing game. So he's catching the ball on, wheel routes. You could run them on those dart and arrow routes that, quick Texas routes they call them now. You can run him down the seam, and he's catching the ball over his shoulder, away from his body. Very comfortable in that regard. But it also ties back into his quarterback background, which, he understands how to run routes because as a quarterback, hey, man, I need you to be here when I'm at the top of my drop. You better be coming out that cut because the ball's coming. So he understands the urgency of running routes, and along with being able to catch the football, along with him being able to, once he catches the ball, now it's a broken field run. It looks like a kickoff or a punt return for him, and he's going to weave his way through the defense with that 4.4 speed and get down the field. So he's a true game breaker. I would say the effort in pass pro is admirable, but that's the area where you want to see the technique come into play.
Yeah.
He's one of those getting away guys, which is fine, but we just got to work on your technique, man, and see it in it faster. So therefore you won't just be a getting away guy at the pro level.
There's a lot of cutting and pasting when I'm going through these running backs to talk about their pass pro. Cause to your point, I wrote down pretty good job of squaring up as a blocker for his size, but that's code for, you got a great personality. You gotta work with some stuff. But I appreciate the effort. So, but I need to see a little more. All right. Speaking of great personality, striker, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll hit the rest of the with the first pick running back ranking 7 through 10 right after this.
12 teams, one epic battleground, and it's the most feared of them all, San Francisco. This city is legendary for high winds, brutal tides, and an eerie, unforgiving race course. It's all or nothing.
All right. Pick 7 through 10 here. Let's start with my guy, Bhayshul Tuten, North Carolina A&T transfer. My dad went to A&T in the 60s. That's how old I am.
Wow.
He was there so long ago. He ran track, Emory, and he tore his ACL. They didn't have a cure for ACL back then. So he was like Joe Namath, just walking around with no ACL for the rest of his
That big
life.
knee break. He was out there with the Greensboro 4.
Oh, he was?
What I mean, you said in the 60s, like A&T.
Oh, I thought you meant I thought that was a track thing. No, you talking about other stuff. Gotcha. Yeah, that's right. He was. I said, I don't know. I don't know that they ran the 100, the 4x100. You got me on that one. You changed gears on
My
me.
dog be lost, man.
Listen, man, you got to slow down for old folks. All right, Bhayshul Tuten. Let's talk about him. He wasn't at A&T in the 60s.
I hope not. Well, I mean, with these dudes with all these extra years of eligibility, you never know, bro.
Yeah, that's true. But he finished at Virginia Tech, and this is back in the fall before he ran that 4.32 at the combine and went crazy. I said he's got legit track speed. You see the burst around the edge, the ability to turn the corner, plays with good contact balance in space, plays with good vision. He allows the blocks to develop in front of him on stretch zone runs, and then he puts his foot in the ground and goes. And he did all this for much of the season wearing a knee brace on his left knee. So he was playing at 4.45 when he took the knee brace off to run at the combine, ran a 4.32. And it's one of those things, and I know you've had this experience as well. You're watching a guy, you're going, man, this dude looks like a top 75 player, and I've not heard his name mentioned anywhere. And I said, I'm hopping on the Bhayshul Tuten train. I don't care where it ends up. He went to the Senior Bowl, had a good week there. He didn't make your top 10. So what are your thoughts on Bhayshul Tuten?
It's a fundamental issue I have with the whole position and how the game has kind of transitioned to where the backs used to be developed in terms of how you saw the game. So the vision used to be something that you didn't have to worry about by the time they got to the pro level because everybody was running the same things. Well, now because everybody's running the same things, the game is different. Different. It's a more wide open game. And I'm saying all that to say he's running through gaping holes because of the zone read, because you know what I'm saying? So obviously when you have the lane clearly defined for you, combined with 4.3 speed, you are going to, this is your world, right? So the game is tailor-made for you nowadays. So I feel like the vision part, when that hole is closed or condensed, he has to work on. And because this is simple physics. Something moving that fast could either be hard to stop or you can kind of tip it over. I remember a homeboy of mine when we was having, it was high school and we were evacuating for a hurricane. He was like, man, I'm gonna just drive fast through the hurricane. I was like, you idiot. Like that wind will blow that car from New Orleans to the Atlantic Ocean. Like,
By the way, that wasn't your homeboy. That was you.
He didn't understand physics. I'm like, bro, you can't be driving a fast car. Like it's lighter, so it's gonna be easy to move. So with Tuten and him, first of all, the fact that his last name is Tuten and he be flying, he be Tuten, right? So
Train tracking it.
he gets cut down easily. So I think his lower body balance has to improve. But man, as a day one kickoff return specialist, that's where I think he has the biggest impact. And he's someone that doesn't need volume, so he's going to fit right into your rotation. But man, special teams wise with this new kickoff, and the way it's set up, boy, he gonna eat.
He had 3 kick returns in 2024. I think he actually plays a lot better contact balance and low center of gravity than you give him credit for, but that's okay. That's why we're talking about it. And here's the thing. Ray Davis went in round 4. Blake Corum went in round 3. I think he's better than both those guys. You willing to go that far?
Not that far. Like Ray Davis was a dog. He was just my age. You know what I'm saying?
He was. Yeah, he's older than Frank Gore. He had a good season for Buffalo, though.
He did. I would say you said Ray Davis and
Blake Corum.
I would say he's probably better than Blake Corum. I'll give you that.
Okay. And he was a 3rd round pick. And Ray probably wasn't the 4th because of injuries and age, probably more injury related because he had a couple. And if he had been healthy and maybe a couple years younger, he probably goes higher than that. But that feels right. But we'll see, man. Sometimes these guys, like again, to bring up Elijah Mitchell, he went undrafted. Now he's a different body type, different style runner. But the fact that he ran 4.29 or whatever he ran, that was not enough to affect his draft status. I think Tuten's a fun player, and we'll see how folks feel about him. And it's interesting that you talk about the hurricane theory with my guy Tuten, because I feel the same way about Jaydon Blue. Like Jaydon Blue is the Texas running back. He's on your list. Didn't make my top 10, so he comes in 8th overall. I have him as an early day 3 guy. I'll double check, but it felt like to me like he can hit the hole, he can turn the corner, but his contact balance wasn't where I wanted it to be, and that's why I dinged him a little bit in terms of not having him in the first day 1, day 2.
It's fun. I'm smiling because in my area of improvement for him, we'll need to continue to increase his play strength as he tends to get brought down by a defender in a one-on-one situation. So the reason why I'm more higher on him than Tuten, I feel like Blue plays 4.2 or 4.3. I know he didn't run. I think he ran 4.3 at the combine.
Ran 4.38.
4.38. But when you see his first step explosiveness, it could be in the backfield. You be like, oh, he gone, right? And so that's the type of anxiety I get about guys that have that level of speed and explosiveness, because if you hit this hole the right way, get the extra point team ready because it's about to be a touchdown.
Right.
And he has that type of speed. And I said this about Jahmyr Gibbs when he was coming out of Alabama. It's like it's rare to see someone see the acceleration. Like, I could see you getting faster, like to where you almost think the film is in fast forward because dudes are just slowing down and they're slowly getting out the frame. But you're right. His lower body strength is going to. So with that also ties into, obviously, pass pro is going to be atrocious because you have no anchor. You have no lead in your pencil. They going to fly you through the backfield. Like, so yeah, it's a liability if he's out there in pass pro, and that's where he's going to have to improve. But it also ties into him getting stronger in his lower body.
Now, a couple things. He just turned 21, so he's incredibly young.
Right.
He's an asset in the pass game. He did have 5 drops on 58 targets. And the other thing that doesn't give me pause, but something you have to consider when you're stacking these running backs, he had 4 fumbles. He lost 3 of them last year. And ball security has to be – that's job one of the running back.
Mm-hmm.
How many fumbles did you have?
Whew.
Oh, Lord. That's not how you want to start the conversation.
I think I only had like 3.
Coming to the interview. Oh, boy, I don't know.
Whew.
You got a calculator?
That ball got kind of heavy, coach.
But look, man, just, playing at 20 years old, juiced up, the track speed we talked about, asset in the pass game. He just has to clean up some things. I liked him a little bit better as a pass protector as I look at my notes here than you did. But 5'9", 196. So my comp for him was he feels a little bit like James Cook coming
That's
out.
fair.
And James Cook can ball. Now, I wasn't high on James Cook coming out, and Bills fans were mad at me when I said that, and he's proved me wrong, and, goes back to what do I know. But I do like Jaydon Blue, and I'm looking at my notes here. I have him as like a mid-4th rounder right now, and that's primarily the running through arm tackles. He'll get stronger and older, and there's the ball security stuff that's got to clean that up, and, you can do that.
I would listen, man. That's a fantastic comparison, James Cook. Because think about it. What was James Cook's knocks coming out of Georgia?
Got knocked down.
Got knocked down all the time. And he put the ball on the turf, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he became a bell cow. He literally got better in that regard. So I love that comparison.
Thank you. That made my day. I appreciate you.
So you weren't wrong. That's the other part, too. Fans love to be hindsight sometimes and say, how could you not? But, well, was I wrong in the report? Like, was this not true about him coming out of Georgia? And that's the difference,
Yeah, and I say it all the time when people, I don't read Twitter comments anymore, and it's been good for me. I tell you not to do the same, but you don't listen to that. But my overall point, when you talk to people and like, hey, how do you know? I said, man, I don't know. Nobody knows. Like, teams are spending millions of dollars to try to figure out who the next quarterback is, and you get it right 45% of the time if you're lucky. So nobody knows, and you don't know how these kids are going to respond to coaching, to living in a new place, to not being around their family and friends. It's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it, and people that maybe go on the internet and say crazy things just to get a reaction also don't understand that this is a stressful job. This isn't like going for a walk at the mall and then stopping at the Cinnabon at the end of the walk because you did a good job. It's stressful. You're consistently having to fight for your job. Families, you got family reaching out, asking for stuff. It's a whole bunch of stuff to put on a 21, 22-year-old. And I think people just want to get mad because they hate your rankings or whatever. And that's okay. That's okay, Emory. All right, next up. Jaydon Blue was number 8, tied for 9th. Brashard Smith, who I think was only on my list individually, and then also tied for 9th. We'll talk about him in a second. Devin Neal, who was only on Emory's list, but I do like Devin Neal, and we had an opportunity to talk with him at the Senior Bowl, and he was a great young man. But Brashard Smith is a former wide receiver. He's a slasher between the tackles, another guy who can get to the edge. Let me see what his numbers were. 5'9", almost 5'10", 194. These running backs, man, have they ever run faster than this year? He ran 4.39.
I don't think so ever, bro. Like, this is the fastest class, man.
So my comp for him was Bucky Irvin in terms of that slasher style. He wasn't necessarily a between the tackles bowling ball, although he could do that. And then, of course, he's an absolute asset as a receiver because that's what he formerly played. 56 targets, only had 2 drops. Did have 2 fumbles as a running back, 7 games over 100 yards. This is a fun fact here from our buddy Coop at 247. Brashard Smith coming out of high school was the number 29th ranked wide receiver in the country. So, again, those skills translate. So, looks like I liked him a little bit more than you. I had him as a mid to late day 2 guy. We'll see what happens there. What'd you think about Brashard?
You could tell he played receiver because it shows up in how he plays running back. If you could read between the lines, right? There are some things like he sort of stops his feet pre-line of scrimmage a lot. And that could be part of the maturation he's gonna have to go through in terms of like seeing it and hitting it while keeping your feet moving, and also the side of him being a game breaker because he has legit speed, he has the explosiveness, and he wants to hit the home run every play. We used to see this with Reggie Bush early in his career, in New Orleans. Like, hey man, it's okay to take the 3-yard gain because the 70-yard play, it'll come, and so you can't hit the 70-yard play every play. I know it's hard to coach you out of the game breaker mindset because you can hit the 70-yard play every play, but the way the defense has schematically set up is not advantageous for you to try to do that right now. And I feel like that for Smith is going to just come with time. So the experience is just going to have to, happen, the time on task. And that'll help him calm the feet pre-line of scrimmage. And you're right, because as a receiver, the positive part of that is that he catches the ball. So now you can't really dictate whether or not we're running the ball or passing the ball because of who's in the backfield, because of personnel. We're not predictable by personnel because this guy can he can run and pass and catch. So now you're going to have to really show your hand as a defense of your personnel. Are you going to put a nickel backer on this dude? Okay, cool. Then we're just going to run downhill. Are you going to put one of these stiff linebackers on him? Great. We're going to just send him out on a wheel route and goodbye. He's going to run past him and catch the ball deep down the field. So he's the ultimate weapon.
Yeah, transferred from Miami, played there for 21 through 23, where he had almost 2,000 all-purpose yards in 3 seasons. Last season for SMU had 14 kick returns, so that's something he can add to his game, sort of, get him out in space and let him do his things. And, I agree. I'm looking at my notes here. It takes choppy steps behind the line of scrimmage, lets the hole develop, but he goes 0 to 60 in a hurry. Like he's moving like an electric car. I like him. And he was a fun watch. And a lot of these running backs are fun watches. Another fun watch, Devin Neal out of Kansas. And Devin Neal grew up a Dalvin Cook and a AP fan because his dad was an Adrian Peterson fan. So when we talked to him with Rick Spielman, he didn't know who Rick was. But it's fun watching these running backs when you say, hey, man, this guy drafted both Dalvin Cook and Adrian Peterson, and their eyes get to be as big as pie plates when you see sort of that relationship. But anyway, Devin Neal has flown under the radar for a while. Why don't you sell Devin Neal to folks who maybe didn't get a chance to watch him this fall?
Great combination of vision and footwork. Those two go hand in hand. So if you can see it and you can get the feet to get there, you're going to be all right in my book. And also when you combine his ability to make a guy miss in the open field while making moves going downhill. So he's not having to stop and shake. He's shaking while he's moving downfield. So he's getting yards while he's also being elusive. And he's seeing it front side to back side. He's seeing it downfield. He's working 2 or 3 frames ahead. That's all great. And he can catch the ball too. So he's a very good receiver. So he's checking all those boxes that you want to see as a running back. But I was shocked to see he was 215.
Yep.
Because he doesn't play like he's 215.
Right.
In terms of he goes down a lot easier than a guy at 215 you would expect. He just started to get better at breaking those tackles, those physical tackles this season. And I think that's going to have to continue for him moving forward.
Yeah, waterbug quicks is what I put in my notes. Like he's not an elite burner, but he's certainly fast enough, good fit for his own schemes because he can one cut and go. I emphasize legit short area quickness in the hole. He can force missed tackles in tight spaces, and that's what you need when you're trying to gain 1 or 2 yards instead of dancing behind the line of scrimmage and taking a tackle for loss. He did run a 4.58. Again, it's not the end of the world for running backs unless you think the running back's going to hit a home run in every single run through the B gap or whatever. But I like Devin Neal, and he's a great kid. He was very serious about football. He was loyal to Kansas and loved his time there. And a lot of those guys at Kansas you talked to, Kobe Bryant as well, they were all in on reviving that Jayhawks program, and I think they certainly went a ways in doing that. So I have him as a day 3 guy right now, mid-day 3. You like him on day 2?
I like him on day 2, but I think when we're talking about this, like day 3, 4th round, that feels about right in terms of projection. Because again, we can't all have backs go on day 2 because there's a whole bunch of deep positions as well. People got to fill up on those. And so because it's plentiful at running back, you can kind of wait a little bit and attack those thinner positions earlier.
Yeah, I mean, last year Jalen Wright went in the 4th round, and he was juiced up. He ran 4.3 as well. I think Jalen Wright had some things he needed to work on, and I thought he might go a little higher than that. But the overall point is that sometimes these guys slip down the boards for whatever reason. One of them being that they played running back, and unless you're truly special, like a Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs, sometimes teams would prioritize offensive tackle, edge rusher, obviously quarterback, and these guys can slip through the cracks. But that doesn't mean you're not getting a Tyrone Tracy in round 5 to come out there and contribute day 1.
Right.
He was I mean, maybe that's the comp for Brashard Smith in terms of the transition from wide receiver to running back.
Facts.
Doing another little different body style there. All right, some guys that we left off the list here. Let's start with Quinshon Judkins because I came around on him as the season progressed because I described him and Trey Henderson as sort of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, like not a poor man's version, but in terms of that setup, where Quinshon was more bulldozer than elusive. But Quinshon can do some stuff too. You had him on your list higher than I did. I didn't have him top 10, but I think he's going to have a chance to go higher than I think.
He has some, and I don't know if I think I heard this from Leger Douzable, our colleague who threw the comp out there, but it makes sense. It's sort of Josh Jacobsy.
Yeah, that's a good
for
comp.
Quinshon Judkins. But when you think about him, I like to see his patience develop. You know, there's you got to be slow to fast through, the hole. And a lot of times the reason why that is because you want the blocking to develop. You want to set up the combo block to make it easier on yourself. But if you're beating the combo block to the hole, you're running into your lineman and the backer that he was supposed to block in route to trying to get to the safety. So you're doing way too much. And I feel like when his patience develops, then he's going to be even better than he was in college because I feel like he was a little bit too eager to get to the hole. And again, this is the downside of being in a tandem backfield because you may run the risk of the psychological part of like, man, I don't know what my next carry is going to be. I got to get in there and show why I should be out there more. Now you're pressing.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So patience, understand your role. And we start to see him get this grasp that toward the back end of the season, which is why he had such a bang out game against Texas.
Yeah, in fact, as I double check here, I had him 9th on my list. You had him 10th, so we had him rated just about the same. I'll mention two other guys here quickly. I got to talk about my guy LaQuinn Allen out of Syracuse, another young player. He is. Let me see. Did he turn 21 yet? He's close to. LaQuinn is 20, so
wow.
he's going to turn 21 in a couple months.
And he came out early too, right?
Came out early. New Jersey kid. He might be the best pass protector running back in this class. I love the energy with which he pass protects. He's another guy who runs a little bit upright, but he does it well. Tevin Coleman was sort of my comp for him. He didn't run at the combine. I was at his pro day a couple days ago. He didn't run there either, and I was talking to some scouts about it. So, yeah, he's probably a 4.6 guy, and I'm okay with that because he plays fast. He is electric coming out of the backfield as a pass catcher, and I have him graded as a third-round guy. That's probably a little too rich for NFL teams, but given the age and the productivity and the versatility he brings, he may find his way there. And then finally, let's talk about our guy Cam Scadaboo. He came on the scene last year for me in 2023. A listener turned us on to him, and then he just doubled down and went crazy this year. And I was talking to Shamari Simmons at the Shrine Bowl. I said, in that playoff game when Cam was over there puking his brains out, what'd you think? He goes, oh, I knew he was about to turn it on. And that's when things turned around for them. Who was that game they came back against?
That was
Texas.
That was Texas, yeah.
Yeah, the Texas game, because they were getting stomped early on, and then Cam threw up, and things changed. So I just want to ask you about his longevity in the NFL, given how crazy tough he played throughout his career at Arizona State. And then where did he transfer from? He was
at Sac State, so I knew about him when he was with in the FCS, and was shocked to see him go from FCS. Usually it goes FCS to Group of 5, but he went to Power 4 and starred, and that's huge. So what I love about Cam is the fact that carry 30 is just as energetic as carry 1. So he doesn't wear down. That's to your point about him throwing up and got back in the game and got busy. I just love the fact that he's always playing at the same speed. He has more quickness, and he has actually more elusiveness than Ashton Jeanty. Because I think people
you're getting crazy. You about to be.
People confuse break tackles and is the same thing as elusive.
I'm going to request a company mandated drug test. You keep talking.
Elusiveness is making a guy not touch you. Breaking tackles is breaking a tackle, right? So his quickness and burst is what really helps him out be so productive as a runner. I think in that Texas game, everyone got familiar with his ability as a receiver, as a downfield threat in the passing game. I love the little nuance of giving him a little chicken wing, kind of pushed off. That should have been called, but he ate. No harm, no foul. Pushed off and was able to extend out and make the catch. So I love him. I think I think he's going to be a fantastic tailback, and one that's a 3-down player at the pro level.
Yeah.
And I will say this to your point about LaQuint Allen. In my notes, I put he has old school typewriter like agility. So his footwork, pop, 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 pop,
Yeah.
pop, going back and forth. So that's going to help him out a lot too as a pro.
So Cam did not run at the combine. Excuse me. I don't think he's going to run at the Big 12 Pro Day. We'll find out. It's going on as we're speaking now. Either way, he had a 39.5-inch vertical,
Whew.
and that gets your attention. And he might run a 4.65. I do not care. Like
Right.
I don't care. And this is an example of a young man where you look at him on the football field standing up next to everyone. You're like, okay, he's going to be a priority free agent, and he's worked his way into. We'll see if he goes top 100. But if he went in the third round, I would not be surprised at all. All right. That's it, Emory. So quick little recap here of with the first pick, consensus running back rankings. Ashton Jeanty, number 1. Omarion Hampton, Trey Henderson, 2 and 3. Kaleb Johnson, number 4 there, tied with Trevor Etienne. RJ Harvey, number 6 out of UCF. My guy, Bhayshul Tuten, number 7 out of Tech. Jaydon Blue out of Texas, number 8. Tied for 9th, bringing up the final part of the rankings here. But number 1 on your scoreboard there. Brashard Smith, wide receiver / running back out of SMU. And then Devin Neal, twitched up waterbug out of Kansas. That's it, man. Did it. That's a pretty good list. I'm sure everyone will love it. We did wide receivers the other day with Josh Edwards, and people hated my wide receiver list. But I would imagine they couldn't name 5 wide receivers. They just want to be angry about something. So I look at it this way, Emory. If we can be a conduit for people to get out their anger, maybe have a better day, I'm happy to do that for you.
The default setting on the internet is angry.
Anger. Super anger. So hopefully you guys can have a blessed day. That's how you be disrespectful to people. You say, have a blessed day. Bless your heart. Thank you, Emory. I appreciate it, brother. We're going to be back, Emory and I. We're going to talk tight ends later this week, so look for that. And then with the first pick RV is rolling down south. I'll be at the Cam Ward Pro Day, and they'll be rolling back up north. I'll be at the Ohio State Pro Day next week, so look for that. In the meantime, thanks all you guys who watch and listen and comment. We'll see you later this week.